Well, thank you, members, for joining us tonight. This is the first meeting of the HR committee, the first and last one of this term, actually, probably, I would imagine, and certainly from my perspective, probably the first and last one I will do. So therefore, the first role tonight is the election of a chair, and do I have any nominations to chair the committee?
I nominate Councillor Oliver.
And do I have a seconder for that?
Happy to second.
Thank you for that. Do I have any other nominations? Well, Councillor Oliver, I'm delighted to say that you have been duly elected to the chair and will invite you to take your place.
Welcome everyone here this evening, which is the first HR committee that has been formed within Rother, as far as I'm aware, and I think it's an important function for us to be able to meet in this particular way of being cross-party with representatives from all groups. So that, to me, is an important way of dealing where we are. So I think we need to elect election of a vice chair, Malcolm.
That's correct, Chair.
And is there a nomination? Can I nominate?
You can.
I would like to invite Councillor Hacking, Lizzie. I know you come from a HR background, and I think that's quite a useful sort of trait to have within the group that we have here. So I'd like to propose Councillor Hacking. Second?
Happy to second.
Do we put a vote on that? I suppose we do. Any other nominations? No? That's it then? Fine. Those in favour? We don't need to vote on it. Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, I presume you have said yes. Good. Apologies and substitutes. Well, there was an apology from Councillor Tempe.
Yes, Councillor Tempe, Chair.
And the substitute hasn't arrived. There we go. Any additional agenda items, Malcolm?
There are none, Chair.
A disclosure of interests, to receive any disclosures by members of personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in matters on the agenda, the nature of any interest and whether the member regards the personal interest as prejudicial under the terms of the Code of Conduct. Members are reminded of the need to repeat their declaration immediately prior to any of the commencement of the item in question. No declarations, so we can move forward, and I think we're going to now look at item 6, being the terms of reference. Malcolm, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This committee's been set up for the first time, so therefore, at your first meeting, you need to agree the terms of reference. It is obviously open to members to change those terms of reference, but I think one of the things that we wanted to do, and if it's okay with members, I think it's important that, although this is a public meeting and anybody can attend it, that it was felt to be important that Unison, as our recognised trade union, were actually extended a formal invitation to the meeting in the same way that Maria comes along because it's HR. So we're also asking members to deal with that. I'm happy to take any questions. The report's fairly self-explanatory, Chair.
So we've all had an opportunity of looking at the terms of reference. Are there any points that sort of hit you immediately? That wasn't for me, but perhaps others have got some. And those remote, Eleanor and Jeanette, is there any comments you'd like to make on the terms of reference?
No, it all looked quite straightforward.
Thank you very much. So I think that do we vote on that, Malcolm, to say that we're quite happy with a mover and a seconder?
I so move.
Thank you. And is there a seconder?
Happy to second.
Fine. Okay.
All those in favour?
Those in favour, I suppose we are quite happy with that to move along. And It's nice to see Simon here this evening. So I think this is an important part of what we're doing. It's this way that we want to be seen to be working together with Unison. I think it's very, very important. And I think this is a link that we've been trying to establish through HR and the senior management team, because it's a vital part of how we work together, an integral part of how we work together. So I know we've only just met this evening, Simon, but it's nice to see you. Did you want to say anything at all? Please.
Yeah, I want to take this opportunity to thank the councillors for obviously inviting the union along this evening. I really felt that this was something that we need. It is good to actually get face to face with the councillors and basically say how what the feeling is generally within the workforce. So I'm looking forward to contributing to the evening's sort of matters. So thank you.
Maria, did you want to make any comment? I know that you've been involved in bringing this together. Is there anything you want to mention at this stage? No. Okay, fine. I think we're going to bring forward item 8 to be item 7, and that's the staffing digest from April 22 to March 23. So this is your report. Are you feeling fit and well to be able to present that report?
Thank you.
Because I don't think Ben could read your writing anyway. So so that's item 8.
Happy to meet you.
Yep, away you go.
So thank you, Chair, and appreciate the time to read this out. For those of you who haven't seen the report before, the Staffing Digest is a bit of a newsy report about what's happened with, with HR and with the workforce during the past year. So it is only a snapshot. It's not everything, believe me, but we try and bring forward a few things that we think that you'd be interested in learning and seeing about. So hopefully you'll have a chance to read it. There were a few things I was just going to bring to your attention. Recruitment, point 2, the turnover figure, it's a slight decrease on last year. So it may seem like we've done quite a lot of recruitment, but it is actually a slight decrease on the year before. On average, we look at about 9% being a good turnover figure for us in local authority in comparison to all our neighbours. So I think that's worth noting. We do still struggle to recruit to the professional posts, and it remains a concern to us. Next was in the employment relations, point 6. We did conduct another staff survey this year, and it is the best response we've had for a staff survey. It was currently 82.8%, which is really good for us, and it's given us some good tangible content to work with. This survey was particularly focused around flexible and home working because it was quite high on all the agendas previously. So the next steps with that is actually next week we're holding a managers forum where we're going to work with managers and their teams to try and break down the findings and turn it into a clear action plan for us all to work towards. Apprenticeships, point 7, we're continuing success with our apprenticeships. They've, in particular this last year, we've been aiming at the higher apprenticeships, so we've had quite a lot of level 5s and level 7s come through. So that's quite pleasing. Work experience, point 8, I'd like to say we're back on track with this. We have had some work experience people coming in and we are committed to it over the summer. Obviously with COVID we weren't allowed to have people in the building. It wasn't sensible because with the work experience they have to shadow the individuals. So we're really pleased this year to be getting the schools and colleges back in, and a big thank you to the staff because that's done in addition to their day job. They have somebody working with them, so and they're part of the success. Training, we continue to invest in training officers. That's both general training and professional training. I thought that was quite poignant to mention tonight. Number 14, the mental health. We have noticed a slight increase in stress sickness across the past year, but I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not just work stress. People are struggling generally, and we're continuing to be proactive and assist as quickly as we can. So once we're aware that staff are struggling, myself and the team of the mental health first aiders and managers, very importantly, are stepping in to help as much as we can. That was all I really wanted to bring to your attention, but I'm happy to take any questions on any other part of the report, if anybody's got any. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any questions on any of the aspects that were raised out of that? Lizzie?
Just a little small question. How many people signed up at the jobs fair, out of interest?
We had I think it was 57. I thought it was 60, but it was actually 57 people that signed up out of interest. Yeah, really pleased with it, really pleased. And we have contacted all of them post the fair as well, so we've acknowledged their interest.
Vicky?
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate you on having a mental health first aider. I think that's so brilliant, and it's something that we need to shout out about as well, because it shows that we're caring for the whole of our employment force. So well done. Thank you.
Eleanor?
Thank you. Just firstly, apprenticeships, that's such good news. I'm such a strong advocate of apprenticeships, and I think that certainly with people not going into, the cost of going into university, if you've got really bright individuals, I think that's so I would really urge us to do as many of those as we possibly can. This obviously helps with our recruitment. I did want to just ask a question though, my terminology might be wrong rather. When you say that the turnover 5.51, so that's attrition rate, yeah? So that's the amount of people leaving us. That seems quite low to me.
Well, we use
it would make me think that the place isn't too bad to work.
What we do is we follow the CIPD equation for turnover. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it takes into account the full-time equivalent, the amount of leavers during that period, and it's factored in through that. All local authorities use that figure, and we do compare regularly with all our neighbours in both East and West Sussex. So generally...
And sorry, I was going to say, I think you said that what it says we're comparative, but we're quite happy against neighbouring authorities.
With turnover, we come out quite favourably when we compare.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So therefore, we haven't got droves of people leaving.
Not according to the turnover figure.
No, that's what I just wanted to establish. Thank you.
Simon?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I sort of noted that Maria alluded to the fact that recruitment for the more senior posts was becoming more challenging. And so I just wanted to jump in with that opportunity, actually, from a union point of view, in the fact that our recent pay increase of £1,500 uplift, there are sort of negatives to bear in mind, councillors, if I can address you as councillors. If we go down the route of awarding an uplift rather than a percentage, an uplift obviously offers an higher percentage rise to those on a lower salary. This can adversely affect those with professional qualifications, and this ultimately can make the recruitment of professionally skilled staff more challenging. For example, planning officers, environmental health officers. And in fact, the less experienced staff are not able to offer the same level of service. And so the trend seems to be to recruit and train our own staff, or to recruit those that are still in the training and gaining experienced phase of their careers. And I'd just like to add that we all want to work in a vibrant environment where we all learn new skills. And to bring in new staff with the necessary skills, knowledge, training and experience, in other words, fully competent staff, will enhance all our teams. If we fail to keep up with market rates of pay, and we're all aware of what the NJC offered and what we offered, so if we see that trend continue, then we're unlikely to recruit those with the necessary skills, knowledge, training and experience to enhance the rather skill base. And obviously the downside of training our own is that they're not necessarily bringing in new relevant skills that an experienced officer would be. And of course, once they become trained and experienced, we're unlikely to retain them if better pay and conditions are available locally. So that's just a point I wanted to make, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you making those points. I think these are things that are clearly understood, and this will be part of us going forward. Sorry, Eleanor, your hand is still up. Is that another question? No, okay, that's fine. Excellent. No, I think that this report is an extremely interesting report, and I think it, and from Rhea's point of view, there is this cross-county bringing together of information so that we can identify what's happening in the west of the county and other parts, which is very important. And of course, some of these areas, where there are large employers, do make it very, very competitive to be able to recruit the right sort of staff at all levels. I just love this idea, as Eleanor said, apprenticeships. I think that that's a very encouraging feature. I think employment incentives are important. We do need to grow our own staff into the right sort of area, and we've seen a lot of very good progression of this, of people that have come in at whatever level and they'll move themselves forward. I do take the point from Simon with regard to bringing in those externally, and that's an issue I think that seems to happen throughout the industry at the moment. I think that the jobs fair, I went to the jobs fair and it was very exciting to see people buzzing around our stand and making genuine inquiries. So again, well done on all of this, and certainly the issue on section 14 regarding mental health is something that concerns us all, I think, and it's important that we are able to give people that right sort of support. So thank you for this report, Maria. I'm not sure whether any members have seen this previously. I don't think. Have you seen this report before?
Well, I've seen it in the agenda, yes, in the papers. Yes.
There would have been one last year?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We used to go to the Licensing and General Purposes Committee.
Right, okay, so therefore, okay.
Sorry, misunderstood.
Yes, okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. Do we just need to, we resolve this report is noted? Moved and seconded. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Cook, thank you.
To move the report.
Yes, Lizzie will second it. Thank you. So we vote on that, and I think that's perfect. Thank you very much for bringing all this sort of information together. I think we're now going to identify the next two items on the agenda, which effectively is the review of the local pay award and the home working allowance and task and finish group, because they are going to be very much part of where we come forward. Post-election, to a certain extent, I think it is quite important that the panel will have to meet and then come forward after the election, so that there will be possibly new members of the panel. So, from that point of view. So I think tonight's process, if I'm right, was to get terms of reference resolved, so where we are, to have Maria's report so that we have a feeling of how we are from a staffing point of view. And then I think we now need to establish a task and finish group comprising of 3 members of this committee to explore the home working policy and report back its findings and recommendations to the main committee in due course. And that would then form part of our pay award, Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies for the order, and if I'd thought about it, I should have done this at the start, so apologies. We're doing this or before the agenda was published. I think it's important that we set the scene tonight, and I'll ask Maria to talk about that in terms of consideration of the next pay rise. So that is important, and the factors that we would want to look at. And I think the point that Simon made earlier is a very good point, and it's one that as employers we're constantly having to balance in terms of the recruitment of new staff who undoubtedly do bring in a different perspective. They come from different organisations, they bring a fresh injection into the organisation, but also developing our own staff, and we've been very successful in that side of things, and I think it's been great to see people that have moved from, for example, planning business support who are now into the more senior levels of planning, which is fantastic, and they've brought an awful lot of local knowledge they've built over time. But we need to have a review of that. So I'll ask Maria to talk about that. I think inevitably you can't talk about the pay rise without the other issue, which has been one that has been raised by Unison. Sorry, Simon, I'm not trying to steal your thunder in any way, shape or form, is about whether we should be paying some sort of allowance in recognising that our work practices have changed over time. We've gone from everybody in the office, we've gone from all face-to-face meetings to a very different arrangement. So before I tread all over either what Maria wants to say or Simon, I'll stop there, Chair, if I may.
Thank you, Malcolm, and I'll invite Maria to take that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the pay award report is there for consideration by all councillors. The staff side have submitted Appendix 2, which is from the Unison side, which details what they would expect to see in the pay award, which I think it's really good for you to read that and understand that. I'd also like to bring to your attention that they have indicated that the local membership has voted unanimously to start the process of requesting the council rejoins the national joint conditions, which I think, again, the working task group could have a look at in more detail. Other than that, for those of you that don't know, we do follow the National Living Wage Foundation minimum wage, not the national minimum wage. So it is higher than what's there. So I thought I'd just point that one out. And basically in our budget this year, we have put 3% for the pay award to be considered. That's what we're suggesting. With regards to neighbouring authorities, one of them has agreed a 3% pay award. The others are all awaiting the outcome of the National Joint Conditions, which has been thrown out by the unions, I do believe, and is being discussed as to what steps to be taken next. So we haven't actually got a decision from them yet, and it's not likely to be until the summertime that they give us an indication as to what's been agreed with unions. I don't know if that's helpful for you.
Okay. Simon, did you want the opportunity, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if I can just backtrack a little bit, if I may, members, that we believed that the 22-23 pay award was due to be backdated to April. And right up until the 11th hour, that seemed to be the case. It was something that union members, not council members, union members believed would be the case. And you could imagine our disappointment when that was changed from being backdated to April to being backdated to September, because it just makes logical sense that when you're devising a budget, April to the end of March is a logical way that you could make the pay awards. And we don't know historically why we're awarded our pay in September and not April, but we are. And so what the union are asking for is that our pay awards are dealt with in April, the 1st of April, and not the 1st of September. And we believed that pay award, the £1,500 uplift, which was below the National Joint Council pay award, would be backdated to April, and it wasn't. It was backdated to September. Now, that caused a bit of angst amongst Unison members, to the point that we took a vote on having it's not a walkout, that's a rather strong word for it, but a protest. I think the protest is the fair word, that we're going to stage a protest on the 26th of April, so later this month. It's not a strike, because we've not balloted for an official strike, and that's a legal requirement. We have to follow, as you know, we have to follow certain criteria in order to take industrial action. But what we are doing, we're asking Unison members and non-Unison members to give up their lunch break. We're going to stand outside the town hall, we're going to raise placards and say we want fair pay for Rother, because we feel so strongly about it. I wanted to let you all know that before I carry on. So thank you for that. Would this be a good opportunity for me to explain what the National Joint Council is to members? Because you might have heard of the NJC, you might not have heard of the NJC. So Unison, obviously, we want to make our point clear that we'd love to rejoin the NJC rather than local bargaining. So local bargaining was seen as the way forward in the past, but with tighter budgets than ever and lack of extra funding to fund pay rises, that's the big issue. We're not getting any extra funds from central government to fund pay rises. So you're left with a very tough decision, either to award 3% pay rises, which are budgeted, which is well below inflation, which is going to mean a real terms pay cut for members of staff. So you're left with that decision, or you can award staff a pay rise significantly below the NJC pay rises, which may or will make recruitment and retention all the more challenging for this council. Or you can agree to offer the NJC rate of pay, which will obviously make recruitment less challenging because it'll make rather a more attractive place to come and work for, but you'll have to then face making cuts to other services. So that's a really tough decision that you guys have to make. However, there is a way to remove this balancing act away from members, and that is rejoining the National Joint Council. So what is the National Joint Council, the NJC? Well, it consists of the Local Government Association on one side. They consist of council leaders and chief executives, and they know all the budgetary constraints that councils are facing, the same pressures that Rother are facing day in, day out. And then obviously on the other side is the trade unions. So the trade unions put in their pay claim, the LGA go away and come back with an offer. Then the unions ballot on whether they accept the offer. So that's just a point I wanted to sort of get out, really. So all the bargaining is taken away from you. And I'd just like to say that if we remain outside the NJC, then Rother pay will continue to fall below our neighbours. And I foresee future years of below NJC rises, further compounding staff morale, recruitment and retention. Neighbouring councils, Hastings, are part of the NJC, and their staff received a higher pay increase than we did in Rother. And if this trend was to continue, it doesn't take long before we're literally £850 worse off or whatever our pay award is this year than a neighbouring council. And you can see where I'm going with this. People, if there's two similar jobs going at the same time, we're going to have to really prove our worth to get that person to work for us rather than Hastings. That's all I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Are there any questions of Simon on the points that you've raised? And most of these are covered off in Appendix 2, I think, is the 2023 pay claim, which is there. And I think there are some benefits there that one should clearly, as a committee, should be looking at going forward and taking guidance from officers where we believe there's the need to do so.
Yes, not so much a question as an explanation. When this was discussed previously, and you referred to the backdating or not backdating, I'm afraid to say a little bit of a confession that I think councillors misunderstood. They had thought that the backdating merely related to going back to the 1st of April because they thought the year ran from April to April. They hadn't realised it ran from September to September, and they discovered shortly before the meeting that the backdating meant a change in the year and therefore an additional sum of money to the staff, and that took them by surprise, and that may explain what happened, and in a manner of speaking, I feel I have to apologise to you for what happened over that. We were caught a little bit off balance, our own fault. The other question, more for Maria really, is when you recruit staff, can you, as part of the recruitment package, slot them into the scale at any point that you choose?
So the actual pay structure has steps to it. So there's a scale, and within that there's steps. So we can appoint to any one of those steps within that scale, depending on experience and qualifications, and that's clearly detailed within recruitment adverts.
Eleanor.
Yes, thank you. You referred to Hastings a couple of times, in your document and tonight. Obviously, Hastings is one of our neighbouring authorities, and I just wondered whether you could tell us whether Tunbridge Wells, Wealdon, Eastbourne, that they're all the same as Hastings. But yeah, I'd just like to be interested to know about other neighbour authorities, please.
Yes, thank you. The only other council that I've took any sort of real interest or research in is Wealdon District Council. I'm sure you're aware, like most of us are, Wealdon are much wealthier than Rother in lots of ways, and that goes back historically to whatever reasons, but we needn't go into them. Now, Wealdon Council generally pay a lot more than Rother do, generally. I know for a fact that they pay a working at home allowance, which I know we're going to discuss in a while. They gave their staff an instant uplift because of the cost of living crisis, and then they go through a more strict job evaluation process than we do, based on the Hayes scales or Hayes something. So it's a more technical approach to each job role, really, than we currently do at Rother. I know somebody that's on LSO scale. They got £2,500 pay rise, and that's a colleague's partner. So I do know that I think they're well rewarded at Wealdon, and Hastings are on the NJC. East Sussex County Council are on the NJC, but that's generally the picture. I've not looked as far afield as Kent and Tunbridge Wells.
Okay. All right, thank you.
May I interrupt? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
We do use the Hayes scale as well for our job evaluations, exactly the same as Wealdon, so it is done in the same manner. With regards to the other councils, Simon's right, it's only Wealdon locally that are on local pay awards. Everybody else is on national, and that tends to go into West Sussex. All of those are on national, and most of Kent. I think there are maybe a couple in Kent that are on local, but I couldn't tell you exactly which ones, but most are on the joint.
Thank you, Maria. Lizzie?
It's a quick question. If you're budgeting for 3%, the Living Wage Foundation, that went up massively, isn't it? Was it 8 or 10 or something? How do you work that when it erodes your pay scale? Do you then differentiate and uplift some roles more than others, or do you just keep it as like a blanket?
What we look at whether the 3% is higher than the National Living Foundation. So we'll compare the two, and they will receive the higher. So last year we actually paid a little bit more than the National Living Foundation wage in the end, because the pay award took it above the actual foundation wage rate. That makes sense.
So where I'm just looking at the pay scale, because obviously you've got some that are going up 3%, other roles are then going to not overtake.
Concertina.
Yeah. So how do you manage that?
Okay. So our pay structure is set by the LGA, and we have to follow that. And I went to a meeting earlier in the year about the pay awards, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to buy a bit of time so they can look at the structures, because a lot of people's pay scales are concertina in. So like as you've identified there, they are starting to become the same, and eventually, if they don't put a stop to it and sort the structure, all the pay grades will concertina. So it's a piece of work the LGA are looking at doing, and obviously we will benefit from that, and I will go to meetings and contribute to those as well.
Malcolm, did you want to add to a comment on this, please?
Yeah, Chair, thank you. There's always a debate about, do you give an amount of money or an uplift, or do you give a percentage? In some years we've given, as last year, it was an uplift to everybody. Some years it's a percentage to everybody. Occasionally what we've done is said it's a minimum value plus a percentage, because one of the issues with percentages is they obviously benefit higher salaries, more so. And that if you're not careful, you get the opposite of concertining, which is they start to stretch out even more, and you start to get big gaps. So I think there's an opportunity, and with the next item as well, for members to have a look at some of that sort of thing, and actually to say, well, because somebody's pay is not just about what they get in their salary, it's also about the benefits they receive. Why people make decisions on coming to places is about the benefits they receive as well. So you need to do, to look at the whole picture, not just what salaries are. I've had members in the past say, well, scale, I'm picking one at random here, scale 12 in Wealdon is higher than ours. Well, it's quite possible it is. You've got to look at what's the rate for the job, what's the rate for an environmental health officer, what's the rate for a clerical officer. You can't compare scales. There is some merit in going on the NJC, and I think Maria will correct me. We follow NJC in everything other than pay. Is that right, Maria? So all the other terms and conditions we do follow. It's only pay we don't. There is an advantage, to be quite honest. It does take the negotiation out of local hands, which has some benefit. It has a disbenefit in that it takes the pay negotiations out of local hands. So that's something members need to consider on how they want to take that forward. In terms of the amount we put in the budget, to be frank, we can put any amount we want in the budget. We could put 10% in the budget. That just means that in order to present a balanced budget, we have to make the saving somewhere else. So it is quite difficult in many ways to sort of get that right, because as we say, in the past, the amount that's in the budget isn't necessarily what we're saying the pay rise will be. It's an amount we've put in the budget. But it is quite difficult. If you increase that, he's not here, but I would have Duncan saying to me, well, we need to make compensating savings elsewhere. And we can take a view on inflation. There are those that reckon by the end of the year it will be down towards closer to the 2-3%. But then it did jump last month as well. And I think one of the issues that we need to bear in mind is even if inflation goes down, prices will not necessarily go down. So the impact on people is there. So I think tonight what we're not expecting is you to say, this is what we want to do. Tonight is about just consideration of the issues. When we deal with the next item, and we'll probably deal with the practicalities of how to allow Louise to minute it in a way that sort of reflects the discussion, but is to take some of that away in the thinking about the other side of things. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that, Malcolm. Councillor Cortell, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. When we looked at our budget recently, we had to accept that there was an amount for refuse collection which was outside our control. So that has to be somehow built into our finances. Now, by having pay negotiations locally, that is very, very much in our control. And we, as a result, it seems to be that local staff tend to lose out. And it seems to me that it makes sense to treat our own staff just like the external staff and go for the NJC rate, which means that there's no stress, there's no tension locally because it's set nationally. Yes, we do have to deal with the fallout, but it possibly makes us more competitive.
Thank you for those comments. Did anyone want to follow that up, Malcolm?
I mean, there are disadvantages to it. I mean, there have been, I think there's been the occasional year where we have given a pay rise when the NJC one has either been nothing or smaller. I have to say that's probably the exception rather than the rule. But it does, in one sense, remove your flexibility over issues. Now, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's a call, actually. I don't think it's either. So I think it's about what we need to be doing, looking at this year's pay, is not just looking at the pay, but looking at everything else that goes with it. And to ensure, for all the reasons that have been said already, that we do need to remain competitive as a place to work. And if I may go back to Councillor Kirby-Green's early point, we're not seeing huge levels of turnover, but we don't know that that's being maintained because we report that in arrears, so there's a little bit of a difficulty there. So I think tonight, Chair, if I could say that there have been a number of points made which will be reflected in the minutes of the sort of issues and the sort of things we need to be thinking about. The next meeting of this committee isn't planned until, I think it's October. What I would suggest is that with the new administration, we get a date early on in that so that we can start those discussions early and have full and frank discussions with staff and with the unions on that, and then see where we go from there.
Anybody else wanted to make a comment? But I think we're in a situation where the local pay award really needs to be deferred until the task and finish group with regards to home working allowances concluded and a recommendation from there. And it is a priority. Obviously, October is far too far off. So come the new administration and the makeup of this HR committee accordingly, I think tonight was really a case of getting the mechanics and the structure in place so we knew where we were going. Therefore, I think that we defer the review of the local pay award until such time as the Task and Finish group have reported back, which will be a fairly early stage post-May. Yes, Councillor Cortell.
Question, please. I seem to recall when we were discussing the pay award that Unison's paper indicated that over the past 12 years there'd been a drop of 27% in real pay in local government nationally. Would that be linked to the difficulty in local government recruitment across the UK?
Malcolm, perhaps you may have a view on that.
It's always difficult to say no, it isn't, but what I would suggest is that where a lot of the difficulty is coming, particularly in, if we take environmental health officers and planners as being two examples, is they are simply, the colleges are simply not producing the number of qualified people that we need. And it is a very cyclical thing. This, when members know, I was an environmental health officer. When I qualified, there were pages and pages of jobs. Then the colleges upped their number of courses, got people out, then those jobs dried up. Well, then age takes its toll on all of us, so therefore you get back into that cycle again. So I don't think there's an easy answer, Councillor Cortell. I don't think it's directly linked, because there are other things in local government that are attractive, i.e. things like the pension scheme, things like the terms and conditions of service that are attractive. But I don't think that you can say that it has had no impact at all either.
Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, we've all watched the news and we've seen that the private sector pay is rising by 7.3%, whereas public sector pay is lagging behind at 3.3% pay. And over a number of years, it doesn't take long before the public sector is just not appealing to people to come and work in. You know, if you've got bright graduates, why would you go and work at local government if you pay considerably less than an equivalent job in the private sector? And I think that's what we're going to be seeing. If public sector pay lags behind, continually lags behind, you know, you're going to get qualified, competent, I'll use planning officers as an example. They're going to leave and work in the private sector and earn loads more money, and who can blame them? And as regards the number of environmental health officers, sort of, whenever vacancies come up, and I'll quote, in my team, the food and safety team, we recruited twice. Several people showed an interest and then backed down. We were lucky to get them filled because Ashford District Council were making a lot of their environmental health officers in the Port Health Department redundant. We happened to basically seize that opportunity. We've got 2 qualified officers, but without the same level of experience as the rest of the team. In other words, they're qualified EHOs, but they've not got the door knocking or actual practical experience, but they're learning and they're fast learners, which is good. And then we've got the 3rd person that came to us that's not quite qualified yet. So I think we were very lucky to get to recruit 3 environmental health officers. And of course, in the future, we might not be so lucky. That was the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you for making that point. Lizzie.
Just say it is actually a really tight labour market. So whether we were offering the best benefits and loads of money, we're still going to struggle. So I don't think it's specific to Rother or local government.
Good point. Thank you. Eleanor? I can't quite hear you, Eleanor.
You're on mute, Eleanor.
Sorry, I was only going to reiterate Malcolm's point in response to Simon. You know, you have to look at the whole picture. You know, there are a lot of people in the private sector that aren't getting 7% increases. That's an average. There are lots working in environments where they're only getting 2 or 3. But I think also you need to look at the whole picture, because for me, the people that I know work in the public sector, the biggest draw is the pension. You know, so, you know, a lot of people in the private sector, you know, they're making the decision that they're not, sorry, people in the private sector may be earning more money, but they're not having the pension contributions, they're not having the final salary pension schemes, which are sort of gold dust at the moment. So I think that we do have to look at, you know, it's not just 20,000, it's all the other stuff as well. And I think that's why we need to look at the whole package, as Malcolm said, because, you know, there are other benefits in working in the public sector. It's not just the headline figure.
Okay, thank you for making that point, which I think Simon would like to make an observation.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to comment on the pensions. A lot of the public, and for example, I've got neighbours that worked for local government 20 years ago, and they say, oh, you've got a good pension, haven't you? Well, I'll be honest with you, we haven't now. The final salary pension went. I'm on a career average or a care pension. I've had my forecasts, and with the cost of living, it's not a gilt-edged pension. I just wanted to point that out. You know, we have people, lower paid staff, that have to work till they're 67 to retire. I mean, is that a brilliant pension when you have to work till you're 67 to retire?
Okay, I think we're almost getting to the point, but we'll hear from Lizzie and then we get to a point of just voting to defer this until such time as the Task and Finish group has convened.
I want to point out that I'm of the generation where my retirement age is 68, so I'm probably going to be all right with that.
Okay, so can I have someone that would propose the fact that we defer the recommendation of item 7 until the Task and Finish group has reported back, and this will be as soon as we can after the May election. Is there someone that will propose that?
I'm happy to propose that.
Thank you. And is there someone to second that? Thank you, Lizzie. That's fine. We'll vote on that. And that's fine. So that's taken forward. Thank you very much indeed. Right, so it's now a case of the item, agenda item 9, I think we're now, with regards to bringing together a home working allowance task and finish group to be established by 3 members. So are there 3 members that would like to sit on that? Yeah, Lizzie, thank you. Vicky? Okay, yeah, fine.
I wouldn't refuse if I'm available.
You're available. So we have 3. Anybody remotely that any concerns about that at all? You're quite happy with Lizzie, Andrew and Vicky putting this together. And they will be working in consultation with Maria, so there'll be some guidance there. So if that is the case, we can then formally confirm that the Task and Finish group has been established. Yeah, and the terms of reference agreed. So and that's on the page 17, which I think is pretty straightforward. I think it's covered some of the points that were raised this evening, and I think that we've made a very, very good start to the setting up of this particular project. Long overdue, as members and I think of officers have indicated, it's the right time for us to bring this together. So I don't think we've got any other business, Malcolm. Has that concluded us? I'm sure I've got a mover and a seconder for that. Yes?
I thought I had for a moment.
You had? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. And we vote on that, and I think that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much indeed. Nothing else to add this evening. I think we've got to where we wanted to be. Thank you very much for giving up your time this evening. But I think very, very useful indeed. It's the right way forward. And let's see what happens after May as to whether or not the individuals are here in some way, shape or form. But at least we've got a structure to take it all forward. I think that was the important thing. So thank you very much indeed. We conclude this meeting at 7:18. And thank you everybody and good night.